You hear it in the quiet, the faint, deliberate rhythm of footsteps that shouldn't exist. Shadows stretch longer than they should, and the wind carries whispers in a language you don't know but understand. Somewhere, unseen eyes are tracing your every movement. Doors lock themselves, windows reflect things that were never there, and the world you trusted begins to bend. Tonight, 3 tales of isolation, intrusion, and ancient watchfulness will pull you into places where safety is an illusion and leaving is never guaranteed.
It happened during spring break, about 4 years ago. Though even now, the memory feels less like the past and more like something that still breathes in the dark. My girlfriend, Anna, wanted something quiet. No crowds, no noise, just isolation. She had been speaking about it for months, a retreat into the unknown, somewhere deep in the woods where the dunya felt distant and time slowed to a crawl. Her brother, Hunter, was staying with us at the time, so he joined without hesitation. I found the cabin online. Even now, I remember the listing too clearly. The photos felt wrong, not obviously, but subtly. Shadows stretched a little too far. Corners seemed darker than they should have been, and the price, it was far too cheap. At the time, I noticed it, and then, like something whispering inside my head, ignore it. I did. We arrived Friday evening, just as the sun was bleeding out behind the trees. The deeper we drove, the more the world behind us seemed to disappear, swallowed by endless forest. By the time we reached the cabin, the road itself had vanished from sight. It felt cut off. Not peaceful, no. Severed. The air carried a strange stillness, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Off to the side of the cabin stood a separate structure, a large, weathered-out outbuilding. A heavy padlock hung from its door. Hunter stepped toward it, instinctively drawn. He touched the lock, frowning. "This is new, recently replaced." Something about the way he said it made a cold ripple pass through me, like a distant echo of unseen jinn stirring beneath the soil. I forced a shrug. Probably just equipment, owner's stuff. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Night was falling fast, so we went inside. The cabin itself felt normal, almost too normal. Warm lights, wooden walls, the faint scent of dust, and something older, something that didn't belong to us. We cooked dinner, talked, drank a little. For a while, it felt like a normal night. But outside, the woods were alive. Not in the comforting way I had imagined. No, this was different. A constant suffocating wall of sound, frogs croaking, insects screaming, branches whispering like voices reciting forgotten ayat into the dark. It wasn't silence, it was noise pretending to be silence. And beneath it all, something heavier moved. At some point before sleep took me, I heard it. Not the small rustling of animals, something larger, deliberate, slow, watching. I told myself it was a deer, something natural, something explainable. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered a different truth. You are not alone here. Still, exhaustion won, and eventually, I fell asleep. I woke to a sound that didn't belong in dreams. A dull, heavy thump, like something striking the side of the cabin with intention. For a moment, I lay frozen in the darkness, my breath shallow, my mind trapped between sleep and something far more ancient. The rain had begun some time in the night, its soft rhythm tapping against the roof,
like whispered incantations from an unseen alam. I told myself it was nothing, just a branch, just the storm. But then, thump. The same sound again, closer, heavier, real. My eyes opened fully this time. The darkness inside the room felt thick, almost physical, pressing down on my chest. I turned slowly toward Anna. She was still asleep, undisturbed, her breathing calm, as if whatever had touched the cabin had chosen not to wake her. That thought made my stomach twist, because it meant it wanted me awake. I sat up, forcing myself to move, even as every instinct screamed not to. The air inside the cabin had changed. It felt colder, stale, like something unseen had slipped inside while we slept. Grabbing a flashlight from the nightstand, I stepped out of the bedroom. The cabin creaked beneath my weight. Each step sounded too loud, too exposed. The windows offered only fragments of the outside world, darkness layered over darkness, broken occasionally by the weak shimmer of rain. I moved toward the front, angling the flashlight through the glass. That's when I saw them. Footprints, pressed deep into the earth. They led toward the outbuilding, fresh, clear, impossible. A cold wave passed through me. Those prints weren't ours. No one had stepped outside since the rain began. I was certain of that. And yet, there they were. Too large to be animal tracks, too deliberate to be random. Human, or something wearing the shape of one. My grip tightened around the flashlight. A thought surfaced, fragile, desperate. Hunter. Maybe he had gone outside. Maybe this was normal. But even as I clung to that explanation, something deeper, something older, whispered the truth. He didn't. The prints were wrong, not just in size, but in presence. They felt like they didn't belong to this world, as if something from beyond the veil of the unseen, from the realm of Jinn, had stepped into ours, leaving behind marks that should not exist. And the worst part, they didn't lead away. They led to the outbuilding, the locked one, the one with the new padlock. I stared at it through the rain-streaked glass, my heart pounding. For a brief moment, I considered going outside, just to check, just to know. But the moment that thought formed, something inside me recoiled violently. A deep, instinctive fear, primal, ancient, like my soul itself was warning me, do not step into their domain. I stepped back from the window, locked the doors, checked them twice, then 3 times, and still it didn't feel like enough. When I finally returned to bed, sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, it came with the lingering feeling that something out there was still watching, waiting, patient.
The next time I woke up, it wasn't to a sound from the woods. It was something far worse. Knocking. Sharp, deliberate, echoing through the cabin like a summons. My eyes snapped open. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The darkness felt heavier than before, as if the walls themselves had absorbed something from the night. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Not random, not uncertain. Whoever or whatever was outside knew exactly where we were, and it wanted in. I slowly sat up, every muscle in my body tightening. The digital clock on the nightstand read 4:03 a.m. No one knocks on a remote cabin door at 4 a.m. No one human.
Anna stirred beside me, her voice trembling. "Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, knock, knock, knock. Louder this time, closer, more aggressive. Her fear spread into the air like poison. I got out of bed. I didn't want to. Every instinct inside me screamed to stay still, to remain silent, to pretend we weren't there. But the knocking didn't stop. It demanded attention, like something invoking an unseen command, a dark nidah, a call from beyond the veil. I stepped into the hallway, my pulse pounding in my ears. Hunter was already there, wide awake. His expression said everything I was feeling: fear, confusion, something worse. The knocking stopped. For a moment, the silence that followed was even more terrifying. Then, a voice. Calm, too calm. "I'm a forest ranger," it said from the other side of the door. "There's been an incident in the area. I need to conduct a welfare check." The words sounded normal, but the tone was wrong. Flat, rehearsed, like something repeating a script it didn't fully understand. I stepped closer to the door, but didn't open it, didn't even touch the handle. "We're fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can go." There was a pause, too long. Then the voice came again. "I need to ask you a few questions." My chest tightened. Something wasn't right. No, nothing about this was right. A real ranger wouldn't insist like that, wouldn't show up alone, wouldn't arrive in the dead of night. And deep down, something darker whispered, "That is not a man." Behind me, Hunter leaned in close and whispered, "I'm calling the police." I nodded slightly, keeping my eyes fixed on the door. Outside, silence again. Then the voice returned, sharper this time. "You need to open the door." The calmness was gone. Now there was something else in it, something impatient, hungry. I didn't respond. My heart was racing now, every beat echoing like a warning drum. Hunter stepped back, phone pressed to his ear. Seconds felt like hours. Then he returned, his face pale. "They said," he whispered, voice barely audible, "there are no rangers out here." A cold wave crashed over me. Confirmation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't help. This was something else entirely. Something wearing a human voice. Something that didn't belong to this world of the living. The thing outside the door seemed to sense the shift. Its tone changed again, this time louder, more aggressive. "You are required to open this door. Failure to comply will result in arrest." The words felt wrong in its mouth, like an imitation, like a jinn trying to mimic authority, but failing to capture its soul. I stepped back. "No," I said firmly. "We are not opening the door." For a moment, nothing. Then a violent bang shook the entire cabin. Anna screamed from the bedroom, and the thing outside lost whatever mask it had been wearing. The cabin trembled as something slammed against the door again. Bang! Not knocking anymore, not pretending. This was force, pure violent intent. Anna's scream echoed from the bedroom, sharp and terrified, slicing through the heavy air like a desperate dua. Hunter and I didn't hesitate. "Bathroom, now!" I shouted. She ran. The sound of her locking the door clicked like the last fragile barrier between us and whatever had come to claim us. Another impact. Bang! The door shuddered under the weight of it. Whoever or whatever stood outside was no longer speaking. It had moved past words. Hunter and I rushed into the kitchen, grabbing the only weapons we had, knives. Pathetic, really. steel against something that felt older than flesh, but it was all we had. We positioned ourselves in the living room, our backs partially turned to each other, trying to track the movement outside, because it had started moving, not leaving, circling. Footsteps scraped against the earth, slow and deliberate, like a predator mapping its prey. Each step felt calculated, ritualistic, like it was tracing some ancient boundary, an unseen daira around the cabin. Then silence, complete, oppressive. Even the insects outside had stopped. The forest itself had gone quiet, as if everything living knew something unholy had arrived. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening around the knife. "Do you hear that?" Hunter whispered. I nodded. Nothing. And somehow, that was worse. Then, without warning, crash! Glass exploded inward. A window shattered into 1,000 glittering fragments, scattering across the floor like broken stars. A rock rolled to a stop near my feet. Anna screamed again from the bathroom. Hunter cursed under his breath. I froze, waiting, expecting it to come through, to crawl inside, to reveal itself. Seconds passed, then more, but nothing entered. No hand, no face, no body, just the broken window, gaping open like a wound in the cabin, and beyond it, only darkness, but not empty darkness. No, this darkness felt alive, watching, breathing, like something stood just outside the edge of sight, refusing to reveal its true form, like a djinn bound by rules we couldn't understand. My mind raced. Why break the window and not come in? Why circle the house? Why knock first? Unless it needed permission. The thought hit me like ice. Old stories, ancient warnings, things that wear human voices, things that ask to be let in, things that cannot cross the threshold unless invited. A slow creeping dread settled into my bones. We hadn't opened the door. We hadn't answered its questions. We hadn't let it in. And now it was testing the boundaries, pushing them, looking for another way. Hunter took a shaky step back. "Why isn't it coming in?" I didn't answer, because deep down, I already knew. We stood there, frozen in place, staring at the broken window, waiting for the next move. And then, faint at first, but growing louder, a distant sound cut through the silence. Sirens, police, the wail of them pierced the night like a divine intervention, like something sacred breaking through the suffocating presence of whatever lurked outside. The darkness shifted. The pressure in the air lifted just slightly. The thing outside retreated, not running, not panicking, just withdrawing, like it knew its time was over, for now. The sirens grew louder, tearing through the suffocating silence like a force that didn't belong to whatever realm had brushed against ours that night. By the time the police arrived, the presence outside was gone. Completely. No footsteps, no movement, no trace of the thing that had circled us, hunted us, tested the boundaries of our reality. Just the broken window and the rain. Hunter and I stood frozen for a few seconds longer, as if our bodies hadn't yet received the message that it was over. But was it? A knock at the door, this time different, firm, human. "Police, open up!" I rushed forward and unlocked it immediately. The moment the door opened, the air shifted. The oppressive weight that had been pressing down on us all night lifted, like stepping out of a nightmare and into something almost real. Officers moved quickly, scanning the area, flashlights cutting through the darkness. We tried to explain everything, every detail, every sound, every word spoken by that thing pretending to be a ranger. They listened, but I could see it in their eyes. Doubt, confusion, maybe even quiet dismissal. They searched the property, the woods, the area around the outbuilding, but they found nothing. No footprints, no evidence, nothing that proved what we experienced was real. Hunter was furious. "This is impossible," he snapped. "You was here seconds ago. You should be able to find something." One of the officers shook his head slowly. "There's nothing out here." Nothing. The word echoed in my mind like a hollow incantation, because I knew that wasn't true. Something was there. Something that didn't leave behind what normal things leave behind. Something that moved between layers we couldn't see. The officers eventually told us there was nothing more they could do. Their advice was simple: pack up, leave. So we did. We didn't argue. We didn't hesitate. Within minutes, we were throwing our belongings into the car, desperate to put distance between ourselves and that place, that thing. As we drove away, the cabin disappeared behind us, swallowed once again by the forest. But even then, something didn't sit right. I glanced back one last time through the rearview mirror. For a split second, I thought I saw movement near the outbuilding. A shadow, tall, still, watching. Then it was gone. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was my imagination trying to make sense of something it couldn't understand. But one thought stayed with me. It still does. That place was too isolated, too hidden, too forgotten. No one just stumbles upon a cabin like that. And yet, something had known we were there. Something had come for us. Not randomly, not accidentally, intentionally. And whatever it was, it didn't feel human. It felt older, patient, like a djinn bound to that land, waiting for the right moment, the right invitation, the right mistake. We left that night, but even now, sometimes when everything is quiet, I remember the knocking, and I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I had opened that door?
The next part of this story is so terrifying, you might not have the courage to listen. Tell me, where are you listening from? How scared are you? Comment below. If new, subscribe now. This happened back in 2016, during my senior year of college, a time when recklessness felt like freedom and danger wore the disguise of excitement. I was part of a fraternity, TKE, and like many others bound to that dunya of excess and illusion, spring break wasn't optional, it was ritual. That year, the destination was Acapulco, a city known for its beauty and its darkness. Within weeks, around 40 of us had booked rooms at a sprawling resort along the Pacific coast. The plan was simple: drink, party, forget reality, lose ourselves in the noise, the lights, the chaos. And for the first few days, that's exactly what we did. But this story isn't about me, it's about Sahil. If I had to describe him, I'd say he was the kind of person who could turn any situation into something louder, more unpredictable, more dangerous. Not because he meant harm, but because he lacked something essential: fear. Or maybe he ignored it. He was impulsive to a fault. No brakes, no hesitation, just instinct and action, like something constantly whispering in his ear, urging him toward risk. And in a place like Acapulco, that kind of energy doesn't go unnoticed.
By the fourth night, a group of us decided to hit one of the local clubs. The music was deafening, the air thick with heat, sweat, and something else, something harder to define, a presence beneath the surface, like unseen eyes watching from the shadows between flashing lights. At first, everything felt normal. Drinks, laughter, crowds moving like a single living entity. But then I noticed Sahil. He had that look, scanning the room, searching, not for people, for opportunity. I knew exactly what he was looking for. Something stronger than alcohol, something he shouldn't be chasing, especially in a place like this. I stepped in immediately. "Drop it," I told him. A couple of the other guys backed me up. "This isn't the place," someone added. He laughed it off, said he wouldn't do anything, said he'd behave. But I had known Sahil long enough to understand one thing. When he said he wouldn't, it usually meant he already had. Still, the night pulled us apart. The club was massive, bodies packed tight, lights flickering like fragmented memories. Keeping track of anyone in that chaos was impossible. And slowly, without realizing it, we lost him. At first, no one noticed. It wasn't unusual for Sahil to disappear into a crowd, chasing whatever impulse had taken hold of him. We assumed he was somewhere nearby, lost in the noise like the rest of us. Time passed. Minutes, then an hour, then more, and something began to feel wrong. Subtly at first, then unmistakably. We started calling him. No answer. Texting. Nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail. Dead. That didn't make sense. Sahil was chaotic, but he was meticulous about certain things. His phone dying like that? It didn't fit. A quiet tension began to spread through the group, the kind that doesn't need words. We all felt it. Something wasn't right. And deep down, something darker whispered, he didn't just wander off. He was taken. The moment that realization settled in, the entire night changed. The music was still blasting, people were still dancing, but for us, everything had gone silent. We pushed through the crowd, shouting Sahil's name, scanning every face, every corner, every shadow that flickered under the club's strobe lights. The air felt heavier now, like the place itself was alive, watching us search, knowing something we didn't. No sign of him, not at the bar, not near the exits, not anywhere. It was as if he had been swallowed whole. One of the guys tried calling again, straight to voicemail. Another checked the time. Past 1 a.m. Too late, too quiet, too wrong. We didn't say it out loud, but we all felt it, that creeping sense that Sahil had stepped into something he couldn't step back out of. Something lurking beneath the surface of the city, hidden behind neon lights and loud music, like a veil concealing something darker, something that didn't belong to the living. We made the decision to leave, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. If Sahil wasn't inside, then he was outside. And outside, in a foreign city we barely understood, the rules were different, the shadows were deeper, and the unseen presence, the kind people whisper about in hushed tones, calling it Gua Khafiya, hidden forces, felt closer. We stepped out into the night. The energy hit us immediately. The street was chaos, crowds flooding the sidewalks, people shouting, taxis honking, engines idling like restless beasts. The air smelled of smoke, salt, and something metallic beneath it all. We stayed together. No one wandered, not anymore. After walking about a block away from the club, we stopped to call a ride. Standing there under a flickering streetlight, the noise of the city felt distant, distorted, like we were slightly out of sync with everything around us. And then, out of the darkness, he appeared, Sahil, stumbling toward us. At first, it didn't even register, but as he got closer, everything inside me went cold. His shirt was torn, nearly ripped off. His face, swollen, bruised, bloodied, one eye barely open. He limped as he walked, each step uneven, like his body was barely holding itself together. For a second, none of us moved, because the person walking toward us didn't look like Sahil anymore. He looked like someone who had been returned. We rushed to him. "What the hell happened? Where were you? Are you okay?" Questions fired from every direction, but he barely responded. His breathing was heavy, uneven, like he had been running, or fighting, or something worse. "Later," he muttered. "I'll tell you later." His voice was weak, distant, like part of him hadn't come back. We got him into the car as fast as we could. No one spoke much during the ride. The energy in the vehicle felt suffocating, not just fear, but something else, something that clung to him, like whatever had taken him hadn't fully let go.
Back at the resort, we got Sahil inside as quickly as possible. The bright lights of the lobby did nothing to ease what followed us in. If anything, they made it worse, because under that artificial glow, the damage became undeniable. His face wasn't just bruised, it was violated, swollen in unnatural ways, skin split in places where fists or something harder had landed with cruel precision. His clothes hung off him like they no longer belonged to the same body. We brought him into one of the rooms and shut the door, locked it, not because we thought someone would follow, but because something in us needed a barrier, a line, a boundary. Sahil sat on the edge of the bed, hunched forward, breathing unevenly. For a while, no one spoke. The silence stretched, thick and oppressive, like the lingering shadow of something unseen, something from the depths of a hidden alam where darkness takes form. Finally, one of the guys broke. "What happened to you?" Sahil didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor. Then, slowly, he began. "I found someone," he said. His voice was hollow, like it was echoing from somewhere far away. "A guy near the bar, short, didn't speak much English. He had a friend with him. The translator translated." As he spoke, I could feel the tension in the room tighten. We already knew where this was going, or at least, we thought we did. I told them what I wanted. At first, something felt off. Not the short guy, the translator. He paused. His eyes flickered slightly, like he was replaying something he didn't fully understand. There was something wrong with him. A chill crept down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked. Sahil shook his head slowly. "I don't know. His eyes, they didn't match what he was saying, like he wasn't really there, like something else was looking through him." No one spoke, because deep down, we understood. Sometimes evil doesn't announce itself. It watches, it waits, it borrows faces. Sahil swallowed hard and continued. "The short guy pulled out a sample, right there, told me to try it." He clenched his jaw. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. The room felt colder, like something invisible had stepped closer. "After that," he said, "they told me we couldn't do business inside, said we had to go outside." Of course they did. That's how it always begins. A step away from safety, a step into the unknown. "I followed them," he said quietly. No surprise there. Sahil never stopped when he should have. "They led me through a side exit. There was a car waiting outside." He looked up at us now, and for the first time,
There was real fear in his eyes, not adrenaline, not shock, fear. They moved fast. Before I even realized what was happening, they were pushing me into the back seat. The room went completely still. Even the air felt like it had stopped moving. He tried to resist, but there were too many of them. He exhaled slowly. They started going through my pockets as soon as the car moved. His hands trembled slightly. They weren't just robbing me. He hesitated, then finished. They were deciding what to do with me. A silence fell over us, heavy and suffocating, because we all understood what that meant. And somewhere deep inside, a darker thought surfaced. Not just criminals, not just random violence, something more organized, more deliberate, like a system, like a network hidden beneath the surface of the city. Or worse, something guided by forces unseen. Quwa la Torah, moving people like pieces on a board. Sahil leaned back slightly, his voice dropping lower. They started talking to each other in Spanish. He paused, then added, and that's when I realized. His eyes met mine. They weren't arguing about money. Another pause, longer this time. They were arguing about me.
No one in the room moved. No one even breathed, because we all understood what Sahil meant. He hadn't just been robbed. He had been chosen, or at least considered. Sahil rubbed his face slowly, wincing from the pain, his voice trembling as he continued. They kept talking, going back and forth. I couldn't understand most of it, but I could tell it wasn't good. His fingers curled slightly, like his body was remembering something his mind couldn't fully process. The car just kept going. No turns, no slowing down, just deeper, deeper into the city, or maybe deeper into something else entirely. I tried to fight them, he admitted. That's when they started hitting me. That explained his face, but not everything. Not the fear in his eyes, not the way his voice carried something heavier than pain. They took everything, he said. Wallet, phone, watch, everything. He paused again, and this time his voice dropped to a near whisper. That wasn't the worst part. Chill spread through the room like a silent curse. They started asking questions. My stomach tightened. What kind of questions? I asked carefully. Sahil looked at me, then away. About me, where I was staying, who I was with, how many of us there were. That wasn't random. That wasn't robbery. That was information gathering. That was planning. They asked why there were so many Americans in the city. I don't know why, but I just answered. I told them everything. He swallowed hard. I told them about spring break, about the resort, about all of us being there. A heavy silence followed, because now it made sense. Why he was still here, why he hadn't disappeared completely, why he had been released. Sahil closed his eyes for a moment. They started talking again after that, faster this time, like they were arguing. His breathing grew uneven again, and then the car slowed. No one interrupted. No one dared. They pulled over, opened the door, and he gestured weakly, threw me out. Just like that, discarded, like something no longer worth keeping. I hit the ground hard, didn't even know where I was. His voice cracked slightly. It was dark. No lights, no people, just road. A long, empty road, the kind of place where things disappear, where people vanish, where even the air feels truge, foreign, touched by something unseen, something ancient, like whispers of forgotten jinn,
moving between the cracks of the world. "I just started walking," Sahil said. "I didn't know which way to go. I just picked a direction." His eyes met ours again, and somehow I chose right. The room remained silent, but inside that silence, a realization formed, cold, heavy, unavoidable. If he hadn't told them about us, if he hadn't mentioned the group, if he had been alone, there was a very real chance he wouldn't be sitting here. He wouldn't have come back, and whatever had taken him would have kept him, or worse. Not just criminals, not just violence, but something systematic, something that watched, something that selected, something that operated beneath the surface of everything we thought we understood. And for a brief moment, it had its hands on him.
The room stayed silent long after Sahil finished speaking. No one rushed to fill it. No one tried to lighten the mood, because there was nothing to say. What he had just described wasn't just a bad night. It was a narrow escape from something far worse, something that lurked beneath the surface of that city like a hidden curse, like an unseen shabaka, network woven through shadows and silence. Eventually, one of the guys spoke. "We should call the police." The words hung in the air, logical, reasonable, and completely wrong. The reaction was immediate. No. Not hesitation, not debate, just no. We all felt it, instinctively. Calling the police in a foreign city in the middle of the night with a story like that. It didn't feel like safety. It felt like stepping into another unknown, another layer of something we didn't understand. And Sahil just shook his head weakly. "Don't," he said. "Please." That settled it. We didn't call. Maybe that was a mistake, or maybe it saved us from something else entirely. The rest of the night passed in a blur. We stayed inside, locked the doors, checked them more than once. No one slept properly, because even though Sahil was back, it didn't feel like the danger was gone. It felt like it had just brushed past us, like something had reached into our world, touched one of us, and then decided, not yet. The next morning, the resort looked the same, bright, alive, people laughing, drinking, living like nothing had happened. But for us, everything had changed. Every unfamiliar face felt like a threat. Every shadow felt deeper. Every stranger's glance lingered a little too long. The city no longer felt like a place. It felt like an entity, watching, waiting, measuring. We stayed for the rest of the trip, but carefully. No one wandered alone. No one chased anything they shouldn't. And Sahil was different, quieter, more distant, like some part of him had been left behind in that car, in that darkness, in that moment when he wasn't sure if he was going to live or disappear into something no one could trace. We never saw those men again. No follow-up, no closure, just absence. But sometimes that's worse, because it leaves space for questions, and those questions grow. They twist, they linger. What were they really planning? How many others didn't get thrown out of that car? How many didn't make it back? And the one that still unsettles me the most, what if Sahil hadn't told them about us? What if he had been alone, with no witnesses waiting, no reason to let him go? That night taught me something I've never forgotten. Some places don't just exist on the surface. They have layers,
hidden systems, unseen forces, things that move quietly beneath everything we think we understand. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, you don't just visit those places. They notice you.
The next part of this story is so terrifying, you might not have the courage to listen. Tell me, where are you listening from? How scared are you? Comment below. If new, subscribe now.
Spring break had always been a time of chaos for others, but for Anna, it was a siren song of escape. She wanted something quieter this year, a respite from the relentless noise of campus life. That's when her friend Lena approached her with a plan, a lake house tucked deep in the Ozarks. Lena's words dripped with promise. A few days on the water, away from everything, no obligations, no crowds. I was hesitant. I never liked the idea of strangers. But Anna's desire was strong, almost desperate. She needed this, and so, reluctantly, I agreed. We weren't alone. Colby, Lena's boyfriend, insisted on driving. The four of us set out, the car humming along winding roads that disappeared into dense forests. The world outside the window grew darker, wilder, as if the trees themselves were leaning in to whisper secrets in an ancient tongue. When we arrived, the house dwarfed our expectations, a monstrous structure on the lake, its wraparound deck gleaming under the late afternoon sun. Cars were scattered in every conceivable spot, more than Lena had mentioned. A subtle unease gnawed at the edges of my mind. The host, a young man with a rehearsed smile, greeted us. Something about the precision of his movements felt off, as though every gesture had been practiced in some shadowed hall of echoes. He gave us the rundown of the house, rooms, rules, schedules, and finally, the key ritual. All car keys were collected at the door. A liability measure, he said, but the way he handled Colby's keys, like a magician choosing cards, sent a chill down my spine. There was a weight to his gaze, a subtle message beneath the charm. Inside, the house hummed with life. Dozens of young people mingled in a haze of laughter and alcohol, but Lena didn't recognize a single one. The gathering felt too curated, too deliberate, and while we tried to immerse ourselves in the revelry, a tiny voice at the back of my mind whispered in Arabic, Al-ayun kulluha alayk. All eyes are on you. It was my first instinct, my first warning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the glass walls reflected more than just the lake. They reflected a watching presence, a subtle, pervasive awareness, something ancient and quiet, moving just beyond comprehension, observing every heartbeat in the house. I tried to brush it off. I laughed with Colby, played pool with strangers, kept Anna close, but the host's shadow lingered. Every now and then, I would catch him with a clipboard, scribbling notes in silence, a phantom scribe documenting our existence. And in that quiet observation, the house itself seemed to pulse, alive with a rhythm older than anything I had ever known. By the end of the night, a single thought had rooted itself deep in my mind. We were not merely visitors here. We were being assessed, and something in the structure of the night whispered that failing that assessment would have consequences far beyond logic. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, but I knew it was not the water that was deep. It was the secrets beneath it. The next morning, I woke before anyone else. The house was still, but it felt wrong. The usual sounds of a lakeside retreat, birds, water lapping against the dock, were muted, as if even nature had been instructed to silence itself. I poured a cup of coffee, and stepped onto the deck, scanning the water for reassurance. But the lake offered none. Its surface mirrored the sky perfectly, yet beneath it I felt the faint tremor of hidden movement, like the ripple of gin swimming just out of sight. The keys were no longer in the foyer. Someone had moved them, or perhaps they had never been where I thought. My mind tried to rationalize, but the rational felt feeble here. Every glance, every sound seemed amplified. The laughter and chatter from the main lounge no longer felt warm. It felt performed, like a ritual dance around some unspoken command. Mid-morning, I noticed the first cracks in the illusion. A couple we had seen leave the house the night before were suddenly back, sitting quietly by the far end of the dock. I could swear they had walked away hours ago, their car leaving with them. But there they were, serene, watching the water. Their eyes met mine briefly, just enough to trigger a chill. It wasn't the casual glance of strangers. It was deliberate. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that it was paranoia. Anna was still asleep inside, oblivious. But the feeling grew heavier. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken warning. The forest beyond the lake whispered in a language older than any human tongue, soft, rhythmic, and laced with intent. La taharab, do not flee. By afternoon, my unease was impossible to ignore. I watched the house from a corner near the driveway, counting the cars, noting faces. Lena's friend never showed. Her absence, combined with the uncanny return of the dock couple, solidified something primal. The gathering wasn't accidental. It had been orchestrated. Every laugh, every toast, every casual conversation was a thread in a web designed to trap us in perception itself. I considered speaking up to Anna, but even that felt dangerous. Words could awaken more than attention. They could awaken intent. It was the glance that carried threat, not the voice. Something in this place responded to curiosity with precision, like a silent watcher shaping reality around the trespassers. And as the sun dipped toward evening, a growing realization took root. The lake house wasn't just a house. It was a sentinel, a threshold, a container for something older, something patient. And it had noticed us. That night, the bonfire was lit near the dock, flames licking the air with unnatural precision, shadows stretching and twisting as if obeying a hidden command. I sat with Anna and tried to appear casual, but the house had already begun to weigh on me like a living thing. Every face in the crowd seemed to hold a secret, every laugh a rehearsed intonation meant to unsettle. My eyes kept returning to the couple I had seen leave that morning. They were closer now, sitting at the edge of the fire's glow, their posture rigid, as if their bodies were puppets controlled by some unseen force. I leaned toward Anna, whispering that something was off. She laughed at first, half drunken, half dismissive, but her eyes betrayed her fear when she glimpsed what I had seen. The uncanny stillness of the crowd, the way every gaze shifted slightly towards us when we looked away. The air was thick with intent. The house wasn't just alive, it was hungry. It was feeding on the tension, the fear, the subtle defiance in our movements. As the night deepened, I wandered toward the far end of the property, pretending to look for firewood. The forest seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat, whispering in an ancient Arabic cadence, "Ili yukhrij lan yaoud." He who leaves will not return. That phrase stuck in my mind, cold and unyielding. I found the couple again, standing near the water, their eyes fixed on the lake. Something about the way they moved, the unnatural coordination, made me step back. I realized they were scouts, sentinels of the house, gauging the fear, the hesitation. And then I understood. This was not a mere prank, a social experiment, or even an initiation. It was a ritual, a subtle invocation, drawing power from the living, the unsettled, the intruding. As I returned to the fire, I tried to shake the dread, but every laughter now sounded hollow, every cheer forced. I could feel the house's gaze, pressing down like invisible fingers against my spine. The host appeared suddenly, clipboard in hand, observing with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Not a word passed his lips, yet the command was clear. You belong here, but only as long as we allow it. And in that moment, I realized that the lake house was more than walls and wood. It was a sanctuary for the unseen, a place where reality bowed to ritual, and where even the smallest defiance invited consequences older than humanity itself. The next morning, I woke before anyone else again, drawn by a compulsion I could not name. The house was quieter than ever, but there was a hum in the walls, a subtle vibration that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my own heartbeat. I went to the foyer. The bowl of keys was gone. All of them. My stomach twisted. Whoever controlled this place was watching not just our bodies, but our movements, our choices. I slipped quietly outside, following a path that led to the dock. The couple from before were there, still motionless, like statues carved from shadow. Their presence had a weight, a malignancy that pressed into the air around them. As I approached, I noticed that their reflection in the water seemed wrong, slightly delayed, slightly off angle, like the lake itself was a mirror of another, darker world. The whispers returned. "Al-Muftah sayakhudhak." The key will take you. I realized then that the keys were more than metal. They were talismans, tokens that bound us to this place. Each hook on the wall represented a choice, a tether to the unseen forces that lingered just beyond perception. And the host, he knew which of us had resisted too much. Back inside, Anna and I tried to appear normal. The others were oblivious, drinking, laughing, living as if they had been inoculated from the dread I felt gnawing at my chest. But the host was always near, silent, observing, measuring. At one point, I glimpsed him holding my keys in his hand, not in a casual way, but like a priest holding an ancient relic. The fear that washed over me was tangible. It was like standing in the presence of a jinn who could see the threads of my soul. By afternoon, I made the decision. We had to leave. There was no compromise left in this place. Every instinct screamed it. Yet, as I tried to move toward the car, I felt the weight of dozens of unseen eyes pressing down, whispering threats in a tongue I did not fully understand, but instinctively feared. الذي يهرب لن يكون له مأوى. He who escapes shall find no refuge. The house had noticed our intentions. It would not let us leave without acknowledgement of its power. And I knew then that this was not merely a vacation gone wrong. We were intruders in a space older than reason, and the ritual we had stumbled into would follow us long after the asphalt of the driveway disappeared behind us.
We packed in silence. Every movement felt observed, every shadow alive with intent. Anna, Colby, and Lena followed my lead, though their confusion and fear were clear. The host appeared at the top of the stairs, expressionless, a phantom of authority and menace. His eyes, dark and unreadable, followed us like coals burning in the night. When I demanded the keys, he smiled, but it was no longer charming. It was a predator's grin, devoid of warmth. "You're making a mistake," he said, in a tone that echoed like a whisper from some distant cursed minaret. I took the keys without answering, heart hammering as though trying to escape my chest. Every step back to the car felt like walking through a web of invisible threads, the air thick with a power that should not exist. The house erupted into normalcy the second I left. Music, laughter, and chatter resumed, as though nothing had happened. But we knew better. We drove away, headlights slicing through the dark road, and when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw a line of figures on the deck, silent, motionless, their eyes glinting like obsidian in the shadows. Some peered from windows, others vanished into the trees, but the gaze never left us. For the rest of the drive, Lena tried contacting the girl who had supposedly invited us. Nothing. Her phone was stolen weeks prior. The person who contacted Lena was a stranger, orchestrating an entire ritual around us without leaving a trace. No law, no authority, no explanation could reach what had ensnared us. We had witnessed the subtle devouring of reality, the djinn-like manipulation of perception and fear. Back at school, the story spread silently among us. Everyone nodded, but knew better than to question the events at the lake house. That host, the keys, the couple, they were more than human, more than natural. They were wardens of the unseen, guardians of a ritual older than the mountains, older than memory itself. And I knew, deep in my bones, that some doors, once opened, never truly close. We escaped physically, but the house followed us in whispers, in dreams, in the unshakable certainty that some place in the world, hidden, watching, ancient, was waiting for the next intrusion, waiting for the next soul to trespass, waiting for the next ritual to begin. We'll stop here for now, yet the night has many secrets left to tell. For more heart-pounding horror stories, subscribe and stay with us if you dare to face the darkness.